I'm really honored to be here. My name is Dave Elliott. I'm from Baltimore, Baltimore Ravens fan. I understand. I've heard of them. They're not bad. They're not bad. But it's great to be in Dallas. I'm really enjoying it. My wife is here also. She was going to speak with me today. She's actually a real estate investor. She does a little bit of coaching on the side, but doesn't do it as a career. I've been doing it for 10 years. Last year was my 10th anniversary. Hello. And it is an honor to be here with you today. I've been with the Tony Robbins group, my family of choice, since my original event was 2003. So I've been traveling around doing events with them since probably 2005 as a senior leader, leading teams through Date with Destiny every year. So I've been to like 14 of those also. I love that event because it is absolutely life-changing. And actually, I want to start off with getting to know you. How many of you have been to UPW? Right, there was only like a couple of people who had. How many have been to like All of Mastery or been to Date with Destiny? Okay, awesome. How many people are planning to go but haven't gone yet? All right. I do totally encourage it. I don't get any kickbacks whatsoever. It's a fantastic program. Like I said, I go back every year at my expense to lead people through because I know the miracles happen there, amazing stuff. So it's a really powerful event. Totally recommend it. And let me also get a feel for who's in the room today. So you all know, you've heard I dabble in relationships, right? I want to understand who's in the room. So how many people are single currently? Okay. How many people, my single people, how many single and open and looking for a partner?
Hit on me.
Way to get out there and get some attention. That's marketing right there. That's good. How many people are single and kind of like it that way? Okay. That's also marketing, by the way. Okay. How many people are single and no friggin' way? I'm definitely staying that way. Anyone? Okay. How many people are married? Awesome. Okay. I think I could pretty much cover. How many people have been divorced? Okay. Cool. So I'm not saying cool that you've been divorced, because I have too, by the way. Actually, that's a funny story. Like the reason I do what I do is because I got divorced. That was sort of for me the big wake-up call. My wife came to me in like 1999 now, so we're going back a ways, and she basically told me that she didn't want to be married anymore, and that was a bit of a surprise to me. I knew it wasn't ideal, but I didn't think it was that bad either. And so what it introduced to me was the fact that there was stuff about relationships that I didn't know about. Because here's the thing, we learn about our relationships in the family we grew up in, right? That is what's normalized behavior. That's what we expect, and that creates our expectations. So in life we have our expectations, and we have our blueprint, and then we have our results. And sometimes, if they don't really match up, we have a little thing called pain. We have a thing called dissonance that's happening. So our expectations don't match our results, and it equals pain. As you see, I have a brand new book, and my book is cleverly called Same Shit, Different Date. Now, you've heard the saying, same stuff, different day, and it means like it's the same thing that happens over and over again, but I changed it to same stuff, different date. Because here's the thing, you think it's a coincidence that you kind of run into the same challenges over and over again with all new people. And that's really not the case. And we're going to discuss that today, and we're going to get a better idea of it. And also, even if you're married, you probably have certain themes in your arguments. Same person, different arguments, same topics or same triggers. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to go through and we're going to do a little bit of, we're going to do this assessment that I've got. It's called my heart assessment. And it's a little acronym that I've come up with, and we're going to go through it. And I'm excited for you all to learn this. I can tell you, I do a lot of different things with my clients. This is one of the things that makes a really big, profound difference, because it kind of takes the invisible and makes it visible. And I think when you do that, it gives you, first of all, it's the beginning of change, because the first step of change is awareness. If you don't know that there's something there to address, if you don't it's that whole thing of why the same thing happens again and again and again, it's not an accident. Like it's sort of, there's something there to discover. And if you don't know there's something there to discover, it's going to be happening, it's kind of hidden in plain sight. But it's going to be in plain sight by the time y'all leave here today. So I'm standing in front of the door, nobody gets out, right? So let's just do that, shall we? Then we'll have some good conversations about this. So in the heart assessment, the H stands for hurt. So basically it's a three-part process. Essentially, we get hurt, and we have disappointments. And it happens in childhood. It's usually in our first 7 years of life, mostly. Because if you think about it, a child is growing fastest, at infancy, and then it's sort of, that's the fastest period of growth. Like every single day is like exponential learning. And so in your first 7 years of life, you're learning pretty much everything you need to know for the rest of your life. Is it a beautiful world where you're loved and nurtured, and as soon as you cry, somebody's running like, oh baby, here you go, here's what you need, and they pick you up and they love you and cuddle you and everything's right? Or is your experience something different? Do those cries go unanswered, or you're not as well taken care of, or you're not coddled as much, or sometimes even abused? That's the kind of stuff that we want to understand here, because those things, even though it's way in the past, it kind of set the tone for the rest of your life. Some of the things that you remember I said, you have your expectations, you have your results. So your expectations are set as, say, a 2-year-old, right? So you have these expectations of what life is going to look like. And then, you're a grown adult, and you have wisdom, and you have experience, and you think that things change. But at some level, we're still operating under assumptions that you all made as infants. And don't you think that's important to understand what those are? Because they're in there. So let's go talk about those. And sometimes it's a little difficult, but I promise you, there's good stuff in here if you ride it out. So what I want to ask you, think about 3 childhood hurts, 3 things that happened to you in your childhood, things that you didn't like, things that you wish didn't happen. And what I'm talking about is, traits of, parents. Again, the first 7 years of life, maybe it's your parents, maybe it's step-parents, maybe it's caretakers, maybe it's clergy or whoever. Maybe you grew up in a facility, adoption facility or something, or whoever was like a profound influence in your early years. Think about traits about unavailable. Were they critical? Were they abusive? Were they seemingly disinterested? And remember, here's another critical distinction. This is through the eyes of a 2-year-old. 3-year-old, 5-year-old, 7-year-old. There's an interesting concept about 5-year-olds. They're viewing the world and creating this meaning. So one of the things we learn at UPW, check me if you've heard this before, it's all about the meaning that you make. It's the meaning that you give something. And so as a 5-year-old, and we give something a meaning, does anybody in Texas, do they allow 5-year-olds to drive a car? I didn't think they did. Well, I know you guys do a lot of freedom stuff, right? So I wanted to be sure. We love freedom. What's that?
They can shoot guns.
They can shoot guns. That's what I thought. And they can carry, open carry too. You get a diaper with a gun strap, actually. So the question is, if a 5-year-old is not really allowed to drive a car, but the 5-year-old is making a decision about what something means, and at some point in time, when they become an adult, those things don't match up. And so we don't usually allow 5-year-olds to drive a car because they don't have the experience, they don't have the wisdom, and they really can't see over the dashboard most of the time. And so it's not a good situation. We want to make sure that we're wise about this. But essentially, at some level, there's a 5-year-old operating inside of us in regard to our experiences and our expectations and what we want to happen, what we think should happen, and what should never happen, right? All of these expectations. See, I told you, they would run out. I should have been gathering them. So let's make sure we take some time to come up with some hurts, things that you wish hadn't happened, things that you, abusive, maybe they were critical, maybe they weren't around, maybe they left. Yes, judgmental is a great one. So here's the thing for the next one. Does everybody have 3? How are we doing on awesome. I told you, overachievers. So judgmental is a great example of what. So if you notice that your hurt is judgmental, the opposite of that would be your empathic expectation. or the emotion that you wanted to feel instead. So rather than having them be judgmental, what did you really want from them?
Acceptance and unconditional love.
Right. So that's how we flip it. So essentially, this is what I got and it hurt. This is what I really wanted. I wanted to be accepted. I wanted to be approved of. I wanted to be good enough, right? So that's what we're going to do for the next one, the E, the empathic expectation, or the emotion that you wanted to feel. Just basically flip them, essentially. You know, if you got judgment or critical, what you wanted to be was approved. If they were indifferent, what you wanted to be was loved and nurtured. If they were, if they were gone, if they were out of the picture, what you really wanted them to be was probably there, or that they feel that they cared, essentially. Let's take a few minutes and fill those in. That one should be a little bit easier because once we have the original hurt, now we can kind of flip it. And maybe sometimes it's not always a direct flip. Maybe there might be another one. The next letter, the A, stands for the assumption. So as someone who had pain because a parent was critical or judgmental or something like that, and what you wanted was this instead, what was the assumption that you made about? So if someone is criticizing you seemingly constantly and always nitpicking and saying what you did wrong or how you should have done this or what's the matter with you, what's the assumption that you make about yourself as a result? Because these are like the most important figures in your life. Like your entire care and well-being is in their hands, essentially. So if they tell you that you're stupid, what do you start to believe about yourself?
That I'm going to hell. I mean,
that would be
parents'
an
case,
yeah, absolutely.
Religious.
So there is an assumption. So an assumption would be, well, gosh, maybe I am stupid, or maybe there is something wrong with me, or maybe maybe I'm broken, maybe I'm unlovable. Maybe I'm just a jerk. Maybe I'm a pain in the ass. This really does pick up, I promise you.
Yeah, it's kind of depressing so far.
Yeah, it's a little heavy, sorry. Bear with me. It's a whole process, it's good. So think about what assumptions might you have made about yourself. Think back to a time in your childhood, early years, when you got frustrated. Like you were really pissed off about something and you were maybe angry or you just wanted to get something different than what you were getting, right? Think back to what you did. How did you respond? Did you get angry? Did you get violent? Did you withdraw? Did you hide in your closet? Did you journal? This is the R, under reactions.
Yeah, as a child or now as a
Oh, yeah. Think about that primarily. Sometimes people filter that out and can't remember. Do the best you can. And I should have said that. So if you're not sure, write it down. There's probably a good chance that it's in there. Like, truthfully, sometimes we delete this stuff, which is why there's no awareness. So that's what I really want you to have, is understand, like, these are your tendencies, essentially. Like, what do you do when you're frustrated? Some people want to yell and scream. Some people just get quiet. Some people, like, self-harm. There's a whole range of possibilities. What I want you to do is identify, your menu of choices there. Some people rage. Some people shut down. Some people go to sleep. Some people watch TV. Some people eat. Some people go to the gym. Some people run. And run, and run, and run. So there's all kinds of different possibilities there. And again, this is bringing this into your focus. And the last one, for those who are ready, and it's all written down here, the last one is the T. So it's your hurts, your empathic expectation, your assumption that you made about yourself, your reaction, or how you reacted. And then last one is T, is for triggers. What I want you to understand is what had to happen in order for you to go to this place that triggers the whole, because notice this is a whole thing, there's a whole loop that we run. Because it starts with a hurt, here's what we wanted instead, here's the assumption we made, here we reacted, and here's the trigger. So I want you to understand what the trigger is. So maybe the trigger is being dismissive. Maybe the trigger is get the fuck away from me. Maybe the trigger is stop bothering me. Maybe the trigger is I'm trying to talk to you and you're not listening to me. Maybe the trigger is, just can't be bothered. Maybe the trigger is an insult. Why are you always such a pain in the ass? I don't know. Think about what it is for you. So we got our hurts, we have what we wanted instead, your empathic expectation. We have your assumptions that you made about yourself, what may or may not be wrong with you. And then you have the reaction, how you reacted when you were hurt or when you were frustrated. And then the T is your trigger. Like what has to happen that really runs that whole, because basically this is a program. Like there's a stimulus, and here's your response. Bam, 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 bam. All of these things get hit at one time. So here's the thing. Like, first I brought your attention to this situation, because this has sort of been operating underneath of your awareness, most likely. I'm bringing your attention to it, and now I'm explaining to you what it actually means. Because it does mean just what you think it is. Here's the thing, that first one, the things, your hurts, believe it or not, you're actually attracted to people who possess those qualities. You're actually attracted to people who are going to be critical, who are going to be dismissive, who are going to be rude, who are going to be unavailable. Yeah. You see how this sets up? Because here's the thing, there is this invisible, it's three-part process. We get hurt, we get wounded, we get triggered, and then we got healed. You guys are somewhere around stage 2. Some of you might have gone to stage 3 and don't know it, but I'm explaining this whole process. So you have a subconscious attraction to the thing that hurt you because it's unfinished business from childhood. And so here's the thing, when you're thinking, why do I keep dating unavailable people? Unavailable looks very different every single time. Like I tell a story in the book, one of my clients had this pattern of unavailable. It all started when her mother, she turned about 14. She was a pretty agreeable, easygoing kid, but around 14, she and her mom got into an argument. Her mother said, "You'll never talk to me that way, get out." She called the police, had them take her out, and her parents were divorced. They took her to a mental institution for 2 days because her father was out of town on a business trip. He couldn't get back. And so for 2 days, she sat in a mental institution around people with like really serious problems. All she was a 14-year-old, and by the way, I've had a 14-year-old. Isn't that pretty much the job description of a 14-year-old girl? Is to, be a little bit taken over by emotion every now and again, right? What's that?
I said feisty.
Feisty. That's a nice word for it, feisty. Yeah, so that's the job description of a 14-year-old girl. So basically, she sat in a mental institution for 2 days around people with really serious problems, and the thought that ruminated in her mind was, never speak your truth, never ask for what you want, because you'll just get rejected and abandoned. And so she takes this learning as a young girl, and by the way, it doesn't always happen at 7. Sometimes it happens at 14 when there's something profound like that. And now she's replicating it again and again. So she gets into a relationship with the guy, and he decides things are not going so great, and he's from Europe. He decides to go back home to Europe. What happened? She had a discussion about where they were, what she wanted, what it looked like, and he's like, I think I'm going to just go back home to Europe. Don't speak your truth. Don't ask for what you want. You'll just be rejected and abandoned. Then she finds out he's critically ill. Have this conversation. Don't speak your truth. Don't ask for what you want. You'll just be rejected and abandoned. She's copying and pasting again and again. And then she gets engaged. There's good news. She's engaged to a guy. They move in together. They're planning a wedding. They're 7 weeks from the wedding. Pressure gets to them both. And he says to her 7 weeks before the wedding, after she's invited everyone that she knows, I don't even want to be married to you. I don't want to live with you. You got to get your stuff and get the heck out. Don't ask for what you want. Don't speak your truth. You'll only be rejected and you'll only be abandoned. And then she goes and she's got a great practice. She's doing really well. She's building it. And she rents a bigger space so that she can accommodate even more people that she does business with. And see, there they go, they're leaving. Okay. I don't kid. So, and then she signs a lease with him, has a contract drawn up with a lawyer, and the girl, first month, says, wow, I don't know, this is really what I expected. I don't think I want to do this. And she's like, but we have a lease. I signed a lease based on your commitment. Don't speak your truth. You'll only be rejected and abandoned. And once again, she gets left holding the bag every single time. Do you see it? This is an expectation created as a young girl that goes again and again, copy, paste, copy, paste, copy, paste, copy, paste. So what do you think is hard for her?
Due diligence?
It's hard for her to do due diligence, but it's also hard for her to ask for what she wants. It's hard for her to speak her truth because that starts the whole cycle. So she'll zip it. Anybody here get really quiet and just zip it when there's something that they should say but don't? Yes. And so a lot of times that's the reason why, because there is a pretty big trauma, a pretty big wound from the past that says don't ask for what you want because it'll only be painful. It'll only come back to bite you. So just be quiet and just shut up and suck it up. Hopefully it'll be okay. Because you know when you speak your truth, it doesn't work out. Guess what? That's the number one way to never have a great relationship, to just be quiet, don't speak your truth, don't ask for what you want. So, is that winnable? Probably not. That's not really a great formula for winning in the area of relationship. And so here's the ironic part. So you're going to automatically sort of, because of the unfinished business, and again, remember we're at 3 stages. We get the wound, we get the trigger, and ultimately we get healed when we figure it out. When we stop using the wisdom of the 4-year-old who created this meaning, and we use the wisdom of the adult who's been here and heard me and is going to buy my book. No, I'm kidding. And he's going to look at this stuff and see it from a different point of view. And you're not going to think of it from the point of this 4-year-old girl or this 14-year-old girl who doesn't want to get thrown out of her house and put in a mental institution just for being a 14-year-old girl. So she fundamentally believes there's something wrong with her, something unlovable about her, because the most important person in her life who's supposed to love her forever just didn't, because she wasn't really biochemically healthy. And so she has copy and pasted this imprint again and again. Like she has an expectation that this is going to happen. And guess what happens when you have an expectation about how things are going to go? Law of attraction. You put it out there. As you believe, so you receive, or so you achieve. That's right. So here's the we haven't yet gotten to the really good portion yet. So you're going to be unconsciously attracted to these people, but also you're going to be attracted to critical people, for instance, or judgmental people, but you're going to secretly hope that they're going to be accepting and loving and kind. How's that going to work out? Does that seem like a bad strategy again? Oh, and here's the other thing too. A lot of times when you meet someone originally, and I'm talking about mostly from the dating thing, but this could be happening in your marriage too, because these things cycle, right? So I'm helping you understand, like, that original, they're going to trigger those same wounds. Like when someone's critical, that part of you that wants to be good enough, you're going to get triggered, because they'll be like, why didn't you wash the dishes? Why didn't you take out the garbage? Why didn't you do those things I asked you? How many times do I have to ask you to do this? You know, those are the things that replicate again. And every time you get criticism, there's a place inside of you that goes, oh, I just want to be good enough. And so it's continuing. Again, this is way back in time. And here's the other thing too. I want you to understand that now you create an assumption. You've created an assumption. One, you were always being criticized, so that means you always mess up, or whatever you believed about it. You know, you're stupid, you're not enough, you're not a good athlete, you're not a good whatever, you're not a good son, you're not a good daughter, there's something wrong with you. Now your assumption is that's going to be the thing that wounds you. So if 20 or 30 years later your wife says, how many times do I have to ask you to take out the trash? All of a sudden there's some place in your mind that says, I disappoint everybody, I let everyone down, there is something wrong with me, why don't I just remember that? Most of the time we have workarounds for this stuff. But like at a deep level, like that's how it sort of happens again and again. It just triggers that. And then the next one is you learn to, this one is really important, how you learn to react under frustration. Let's talk about what we have here in the room. Give me an idea of what was the way that you all reacted under frustration? Noni, you have one?
We're talking relationships, so it could be go crazy jealous or say mean shit to me or to the person.
Right. So that's a pretty thorough package right there. She kind of abandons herself and everything that's important to her, all the things that make her feel good and make her her, right? Going to the gym, taking care of herself. And rather than just asking for what she wants, she gets a bit of a mean tongue on her and yells at him. And what's the other one was you get jealous. You tend to get crazy jealous. Okay, that's another one too. How does that work out for you, by the way?
Not great.
I didn't think so.
It seemed like such an obvious question. How did that work out?
Yeah, and so that's the kind of a challenge that comes back again and again, because here's the thing: if you go into a relationship again, was your original hurt something about not being enough or being?
Yeah, there was some of that.
So
My household was a little spicy. Yeah.
okay, so again, her original assumption was somehow she wasn't enough, and now she keeps attracting men who she gets jealous because someone else offers more than her. So see how this starts again? It copy and paste, copy and paste, copy. So the assumption is it starts as I'm not enough, and then you recreate this again and again and again, and it starts to kind of make you a little bit just like, oh my God, why is this happening again? Because, here's the thing, it's confusing because it looks different every single time. I remember the example of her name, I call her Melinda in the book, the one who kicked out of her house and kept replicating, don't speak your truth, you'll just be rejected and abandoned, rejected and abandoned, rejected and abandoned. So this plays out again and again. Here's the thing. In the beginning, in the early heady days of relationship, does she have any clue whatsoever that these men or these people or these business partners are going to ultimately reject and abandon her? No clue. Because when we all first meet, who shows up on that first date? It's our personal representative, our PR agent, public relations. And they're on their best behavior, and they're listening to you, and they're interested. Like, oh my God, that's so funny. And they're engaged, and like, oh, he'll never get tired of me, or she'll never dismiss me or be critical of me. And it's just like, no, that was their personal representative on their best behavior. But there's something in your subconscious that is magnetically attracted to these things, not because you suck. And that's the assumption we make. This keeps happening to me because there's something wrong with me. No, that is not. The subconscious attraction is, your job in an adulthood is to heal. And so you're subconsciously attracted to that which is unfinished business so you can get to stage 2 and ultimately stage 3. So if you ever had any belief that this keeps happening because there's something wrong with me, I'm breaking that up today. That's the breakup you're having. You're breaking up with that idea. That is not what's happening. What is happening is you are attracted to this because you need to change it. And it starts with a new awareness. Thank you, that's my job. You have the new awareness. This is not happening to you because you're unlovable, or you're stupid, or you're unworthy, or you're a jerk. That's not why it's happening. It is happening because you are called to heal it. And the mechanism for healing it is to get triggered by someone else. And then, now that you have an awareness, now you have skills, you have opportunities to change it. The reason I ask about your reactions, who's got another example of a reaction? We've had, yelling at people, and we had, being jealous, and we had abandoning yourself and what's important to you. Who's got another great example of that? James, yeah?
To become manipulating and controlling.
Holy shit. That's a great one. So the thing is, when you're a child and you're surrounded by uncertainty, you have no power because the adults run the show, and you basically got to go along to get along. So you learn to manipulate. You learn to try to get control any way you can because it's an uncontrollable situation. When you're a kid, you're freaking powerless. And so now we have grown-ups who figure out how to control and manipulate. And by the way, anybody want to be in a relationship with someone who likes to control and manipulate them? You know better. You know, it's really difficult, right? But this is like your old bag of tricks, and your old bag of tricks doesn't work anymore. The reason I'm bringing up the reaction thing, I want you to understand this is so important, and here's why. This is the one thing that you do that screws up your possibility for having a great relationship. If you yell and scream, that's not the way to get it. If you get quiet, that's not the way to get it. If you don't ask for what you want, that's not the way to get it. It's somewhere in the middle, somewhere between the black and the white, in the gray. It's saying, hey, look, I know you probably didn't mean to do it. This is what I noticed there. This is what's happening there. This is what I really want. How do we create a win-win in this situation? How do you know your value? How do you speak your value? How to ask for what you want? And then if ultimately it's just a bad match, because sometimes it's just a bad match, you have to say, wow, this has been great. I'm really grateful for the entire thing. You taught me so much about myself. I don't really think that we're probably a good match. So I want to let you go and find someone that is a great match, because I think you're awesome and I think you deserve to be loved and adored by someone who can do that job probably more effectively than I can. And by the way, you all deserve that too, right? But that's the truth. We do these extremes, one way or the other. We either get quiet and sulk, or we yell and scream, or we punch the wall, or we go and, like one of my clients would go in the closet and journal and draw pictures, or read, or sit and binge watch a Netflix, or, you know, these are the things that you hear. Like, I'm pretty sure that's not going to get you the relationship that you want. You're not going to find the answer in a bag of potato chips. You're just not. Or the bottom of a thing of Haagen-Dazs. That's not where the answer is. Here's the other thing, too, I want you to take away from this. Like, every single, there's no human behavior that doesn't have a damn good reason. Who I am and what I want and what I deserve, that comes from a new level of clarity, understanding this. Like, this is why I know it's kind of a bummer, right? But the thing is, when you have a real understanding of this, it's just like, holy crap. Now I understand it, like this one and that one, this one, that one. Oh my God. How does this keep happening? Is the familiar refrain. But it's different. And sometimes there are people who've you dated 10 people and you think they have nothing in common. But with this understanding, you're like, oh my God, he was unavailable too. Or she was critical, or she didn't have her stuff together. So I was dating down so that, she wouldn't be, she wouldn't get too full of herself and realize that I was such a dork and then leave me. So, you're in a relationship that can never really ultimately feel good because you know the situation. You can't lie to yourself, ultimately. You know what you're doing. I'm dating down because I don't want her to leave. And meanwhile, I'm going to keep paying her car note, or I'm going to keep doing this and doing that, and just make sure she needs me so she's not going to leave. But here's the thing. Take number one. Repeat after me. People are basically doing the very best they can with what they have in the moment. Like my story, I was adopted as an infant at 3 months old. And I was adopted, I had an older brother. My parents were trying to get pregnant for a few years, and my brother was 5, and I was adopted into the family. And then they thought, okay, well, we wanted 2 kids, so we're going to adopt this young man. And my brother, in that 5 years before I arrived, he was beaten down into compliance. And here's what you don't know about me. I'm not very compliant. I'm the pain in the ass. I'm the one, who knows who Axl Rose is? I got an Axl Rose. My Axl Rose is, F you, I won't do what you told me. That's my response. And not necessarily from a bad way. We can ratchet this anyway. Sometimes it'll just be a passive aggressive, like, yeah, I'll try to get to that. I ain't doing it. And I just won't do it. Oh, yeah, I didn't get to it. Or sometimes it'll be an overt, hey, don't you fucking talk to me. You're not going to talk to me that way. And like, we can go as far as we want to go, but I am not really compliant. I'm easygoing, and I love people, and I love working with them. I love working them effectively. If they work in my style, we're going to be famous friends forever. But if they're disrespectful, If they're rude, no. If they're dismissive, because I've done my work. I don't need to take that. So I have my older brother who's very compliant, and then 5 years later, after I'm adopted, lo and behold, my parents aren't trying anymore, and they have a little girl. So you have morning sickness that doesn't go away. my sister is born, so she's the baby girl, and she's the daughter, and 2 boys. So I got my really good compliant brother, and I've got my little girl my little sister who has a totally different set of rules. And who's the one in the middle being the pain in the ass, the agitator? Because I wasn't ever going to get attention for being the good kid, because my brother had that locked up. And my sister she's the girl, she's the baby. And so every kid is going to find a way to get attention. They'll get it through good ways. They'll be, superstar athletes. They'll be great artists. They'll be musicians. They'll be just academics. They'll be whatever. They'll get attention. They'll find a way. And sometimes they'll do it by being the troublemaker, being the agitator. And sometimes they'll do it by being in trouble. Sometimes they'll do it by having a drug problem. Sometimes they'll do it by being homeless. all find a way. You know, Tony has 6 human needs, significance. We all have significance in our stories somehow. We all have certainty in our stories somehow. You can actually have significance and certainty from being homeless for 10 years, is that right?
Wow.
Yeah. You don't understand. You haven't been where I've been. Significance. So there's 6 human needs, a lot of ways to get there. This is why this is so important to get there. Like, you guys are running sort of this pattern. But it's not a pattern because you're not worthy of love. You're here today, you're worthy of love. You absolutely are. You don't have to do anything to get it, except to understand this pattern and put yourself in the direction of achieving what you want and what you ultimately are truly worthy of. But that takes you understanding this little bag of tricks. So again, that reaction thing, you know, we got to figure out what your bag of tricks is, what you do, and what you need to do instead. And then understand your triggers. Like, I am committed to this course of action. But I say, if you say that quietly, like, hey, I love you, I care for you, please don't yell at me. My mother used to yell at me. It doesn't work for me, it doesn't work for us. And I'm really committed to having a different kind of relationship. I want a relationship where my woman and I, we can talk and we can ask for what we want, and we frickin' know we deserve to be treated impeccably. We also understand that we'll occasionally fuck up, and we'll occasionally mess up, but still, we're going to come back to the center and we're going to speak the truth about, hey, I'm sorry, you're right. My wife does this too, and look, here's the thing, we got 2 relationship coaches in a relationship, that's fun. Sometimes. Yeah, I'm going to get to you in 1 second. Like, we have really direct conversations.
Wow.
Because we speak the truth and we put it out there, and we have a higher standard, and that's the really important thing too. Like, one of the other reasons why I love these groups, because again, one, we're putting this information out in the world, we're raising more conscious awareness throughout the planet, through the globe, through the city, through the county, you know, in your communities. So yeah, the reason you think it's rare is because you haven't freaking done your part.
So is
I thank you all for everything you shared, everything you talked about, everything you got. Here's what I want to leave you. You all are amazing. I love this group. I love every one of you guys are worthy of love, an amazing love, but what it's going to take is just ask for what you want. Know that you are worthy. You say, Dave says I'm worthy of love. Say, Dave says I'm worthy of love. Say it. Say, I'm worthy of love.
Dave says I'm worthy of love.
big round of applause for David.